The emergency signal flashed red across Dr. Zexton's 6 eyes as he floated in his research pod, deep within the Galactic Council's Xenobiology Center. His tentacles moved quickly across the holographic controls, pulling up the urgent transmission from Survey Team Theta 9. What he saw made his breathing slits flutter with disbelief. A crude metal ship hung in space near Jupiter, clearly not built by any known galactic civilization. The vessel looked like someone had welded scrap metal together and somehow made it fly between stars. Worse yet, the beings inside had already made contact with the Thalorian research station without following any proper first contact protocols. Impossible, Sexton whispered in his native tongue, his translator device quickly converting the words to standard galactic. He accessed the planetary database and searched for the third planet in this particular system. The results made his skin turn pale, blue with shock. Earth. Classification Class X Deathworld. Unsuitable for any known form of life. The data scroll painted a picture of horror. Surface gravity nearly 3 times the galactic standard. An atmosphere filled with the highly reactive gas oxygen, which could burn through most organic compounds. Temperature swings that ranged from freezing to boiling across different regions of the planet. Massive storms that could level entire cities. And most terrifying of all, a young, unstable star that bombarded the surface with deadly radiation every single day. Yet somehow, impossibly, thinking beings had not only survived on this nightmare world, but had built machines capable of reaching other stars. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the human vessel New Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison scratched his beard as he stared at the alien station through the viewport. The thing looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space, all smooth curves and flowing lines. Nothing like the angular, practical designs humans preferred. "Sir, they're asking us to dock at Port 7, said Lieutenant Bobby Taylor from the communications station. "Their translator seems to be working fine, though they keep asking if we need medical assistance." Morrison shrugged. "Tell them we're doing great. Ask if they have coffee." The response that came back made the entire bridge crew look at each other in confusion. The aliens seemed to think coffee was some kind of dangerous chemical weapon on the Thalorian station. Research Director Velnara was having what humans might call a panic attack. The beings from the Deathworld were requesting to bring aboard substances that their computer identified as Class A biotoxins. One called coffee contained alkaloids that could stop a Thalorian heart. Another called chocolate had compounds that would shut down their nervous system. And something called hot sauce registered as industrial solvent. "They want to consume these poisons," Velnara said to her assistant, her crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. "They are asking if we would like to try some." 3 days later, Dr. Zexton arrived at the research station aboard the fastest ship the Galactic Council could provide. He brought with him a full xenobiology team, medical specialists, and enough emergency equipment to handle what everyone expected to be a disaster. The human delegation was waiting for them in docking Bay 7. Sexton had studied the scanned images, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, bipedal creatures with only 2 eyes and no visible natural armor. Their skin looked soft and vulnerable. They stood upright in the station's gravity field that was set to galactic standard, which should have been crushing them, but they seemed perfectly comfortable. "Welcome to our humble station," Velnara said through her translator. "We have prepared isolation chambers for your safety." The human leader, Captain Morrison, smiled, showing his white teeth. This expression made several aliens step backward, as bared teeth usually meant aggression in most species. "That's very kind," Morrison said, "but we don't need isolation. We brought our own air supply just in case, but your atmosphere looks fine to us. A little thin, maybe." "A little thin." Dr. Zexton made rapid notes. The station's atmosphere was standard galactic mixture, carefully balanced to support the widest range of known life forms. These humans found it thin. "Perhaps we should begin with medical scans," Dr. Zexton suggested, "to ensure compatibility." The human female, Commander Lisa Hayes, nodded. "Sure thing. We brought our own medical officer, too. Dr. Carol Anderson wanted to compare notes with your doctors." The first shock came when they tried to take basic readings. Human body temperature registered as fever levels for most galactic species. Their heart rate and blood pressure were off the charts. The oxygen saturation in their blood was so high, it should have been toxic. "Are you feeling well?" Dr. Zexton asked Morrison during the scan. "Your biological readings suggest severe distress." Morrison laughed, another expression that made the aliens nervous. "Never felt better, though I could really use that coffee I mentioned earlier." The second shock came when Dr. Carol Anderson unpacked her medical kit. The instruments looked primitive compared to galactic technology, but when she demonstrated a simple blood pressure cuff on Commander Hayes, the readings matched their advanced scanners perfectly. These beings had developed medical technology without any outside help. "Your healing methods are fascinating," Dr. Zexton told Dr. Anderson. "How do you treat injuries on your world?" Dr. Anderson smiled. "Well, for minor cuts we just clean them and let them heal naturally. Human bodies are pretty good at fixing themselves. For broken bones, we set them and wait for the bone to grow back together. Takes about 6 to 8 weeks usually." 6 to 8 weeks. Dr. Zexton's breathing slits fluttered again. Most galactic species required months of treatment in specialized healing chambers to recover from bone fractures. These humans just waited for their bodies to repair themselves. The third shock came during the meal period. The humans had brought food from their ship to share despite the earlier warnings about biotoxins. Commander Hayes unwrapped something she called a sandwich. "Ham and cheese," she explained. "Pretty basic. The ham comes from pigs we raise for food." The translator struggled with the concept. Pigs, according to the database, were large omnivorous animals that weighed several hundred pounds and had dangerous tusks. The humans raised them as livestock. Captain Morrison bit into an apple, the sound of his teeth breaking through the fruits, skin making several aliens flinch. "We grow these in orchards back home. Nothing beats fresh fruit." Dr. Zexton watched in fascination as the humans consumed their food. They used their teeth to tear and grind organic matter, breaking it down with powerful jaw muscles. Their digestive systems could apparently handle a wide variety of substances that would poison most galactic citizens. "Tell me about your world," Dr. Zexton said carefully. "What is it like to live there?" Morrison and Hayes exchanged glances. "Earth? It's beautiful," Hayes said. "Blue oceans, green forests, snow-capped mountains. We have deserts and jungles, grasslands and tundra, lots of variety." "And the dangerous animals?" Dr. Zexton prompted. "Well, you have to be careful in some places," Morrison admitted. "Bears can be trouble if you surprise them, snakes in certain regions, sharks if you're swimming in the wrong areas. But mostly they leave you alone if you leave them alone." Bears, snakes, sharks. Dr. Zexton quickly accessed the database entries for these creatures, each one registered as an apex predator capable of killing multiple adult galactic citizens. The humans spoke of them like minor inconveniences. "How do you protect your young from these predators?" Velnara asked. Hayes laughed. "We teach them what to watch out for. Basic safety stuff. Don't feed the bears. Look where you step in snake country. Don't swim alone in shark waters. Common sense, really. Common sense." Dr. Zexton was beginning to understand that human common sense was anything but common in the galaxy. As the day continued, more impossible facts emerged. Humans could survive in temperature ranges that spanned nearly 100 degrees. They could go days without food, weeks without medical attention. Their immune systems fought off infections that would kill most galactic species before symptoms even appeared. Most shocking of all, they seemed to think their death world was a nice place to live. "We should set up regular meetings," Morrison suggested as the day ended. "There's a lot we could learn from each other," Dr. Zexton agreed, though he suspected the humans had no idea how much they were about to teach the galaxy about survival, adaptation, and the true meaning of the word impossible. Dr. Zexton spent 3 sleepless cycles preparing his report for the Galactic Council. The medical data from the humans was so unusual that he had to run every test twice to believe the results. His research team worked around the clock, trying to understand how these creatures could exist. "The bone density readings must be wrong," said his assistant Dr. Kylara, her 4 arms waving in frustration. "No organic being can have bones this dense and still move freely." Zexton looked at the data again. Human bones were nearly twice as dense as any known galactic species. Their muscle fibers were packed with power-generating cells that could produce incredible force. Their cardiovascular system could pump the thick, oxygen-rich blood through their bodies at pressures that would burst the blood vessels of most aliens. Request to volunteer for extended testing, Zexthon decided. We need to understand their full capabilities. On the human ship New Horizon, Marine Sergeant Tony Garcia raised his hand when Captain Morrison asked for volunteers. Garcia was a big man, built like the soldiers Earth needed for heavy combat operations. He stood 6 feet tall and weighed over 200 pounds of muscle and bone. "Just don't stick me with too many needles," Garcia joked as he reported to the alien medical bay. "I'm not good with needles." Dr. Zexthon began with simple tests. He asked Garcia to lift weights while alien sensors measured the output. The first weight Garcia lifted was designed to test the maximum strength of large galactic species. Garcia picked it up with one hand and looked bored. "Got anything heavier?" Garcia asked. They brought heavier weights. Garcia kept lifting them, easily. When they ran out of test weights, Garcia demonstrated push-ups, pull-ups, and running on a treadmill. The aliens watched their sensors with growing amazement as Garcia ran for 30 minutes without stopping, his heart rate steady, his breathing controlled. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Kailara. "He should be exhausted. His body should be shutting down." But Garcia was barely sweating. When they asked him to stop, he shrugged and said he could keep going for another hour or two if they wanted. The most shocking test came when they studied Garcia's reaction time. They flashed lights, played sounds, and tested his reflexes. His nervous system responded faster than their computers could measure accurately. When a test weight accidentally fell from the ceiling, Garcia caught it before any of the aliens even saw it moving. "Where I come from, you learn to move fast or you get hurt," Garcia explained. "Basic survival stuff." While the medical tests continued, Dr. Amy Foster arrived from Earth with what she called educational materials. Foster was a biologist who specialized in Earth's wildlife. She had brought videos and presentations to help the aliens understand human homeworld. "I thought we'd start with something gentle," Foster said as she set up her equipment in the station's main conference room. "Just a basic nature documentary about African wildlife." Dr. Zexthon gathered his research team and several other alien scientists. They settled into their viewing areas, expecting to see the peaceful plant life and small creatures that populated most habitable worlds. The documentary began with sweeping shots of the African savanna. Golden grassland stretched to the horizon under a blazing sun. The aliens nodded approvingly. This looked like a normal landscape. Then the camera focused on a herd of zebras drinking at a waterhole. "These are zebras," Foster explained. "Herbivores, very common in Africa. The zebras looked harmless enough. They were large, but they ate plants." Several aliens relaxed in their seats. Then the lions appeared. The attack happened fast. A pride of lions charged from the tall grass, their powerful bodies covering ground with terrifying speed. The zebras tried to run, but one stumbled. The lions brought it down with claws and teeth, working together like a military unit. 3 alien scientists fainted immediately. 2 more began making distress calls on their communication devices. Dr. Velnara's crystalline form flickered so rapidly, it looked like a strobe light. "Stop the recording," Dr. Zexthon gasped. "Medical emergency." But Dr. Foster looked confused. "This is just normal hunting behavior. Lions are predators, they have to eat." Normal. The word sent shock waves through the alien observers. This savage attack was normal on the human homeworld. "Perhaps we should skip to something less intense," Dr. Zexthon suggested once the medical team had treated the fainting scientists. Foster nodded and changed the video. "How about crocodiles? They're much more peaceful. They just sit in the water most of the time." The new footage showed what looked like floating logs in a muddy river. The aliens began to relax again. Then a wildebeest came down to drink. The crocodile exploded from the water like a missile. Its jaws, filled with teeth the size of daggers, clamped onto the wildebeest's head. The massive reptile rolled, twisted, and dragged its prey into the deep water. This time 4 aliens fainted. 2 had to be carried to the medical bay. Dr. Zexthon's breathing slits were working overtime as he tried to process what he was seeing. These creatures, he said slowly, they live on your world, among your people. Well, not among us exactly, Foster said. Most of them live in wild areas. Though we do have some in zoos, so people can see them safely. The concept of deliberately keeping apex predators for public viewing was so alien that it took several minutes for the translators to convey the idea properly. Foster tried one more video, this time featuring snakes. She chose what she thought would be calming footage of a python sleeping in a tree. But when the snake moved to catch a bird, demonstrating how it could kill prey by crushing it with pure muscle power, the remaining alien scientists requested an immediate end to the presentation. Every single creature in those recordings is classified as an extinction-level threat, Dr. Zexthon told Foster afterward. Any one of them could wipe out entire colonies of our people. Foster looked genuinely surprised. Really? But they're just animals. I mean, you have to be careful around some of them, but humans have lived alongside these creatures for thousands of years. The aliens spent the next 2 days trying to understand this concept. The humans had not just survived on a world filled with super predators, they had thrived. They had built cities, developed technology, and created art while sharing their planet with creatures that could kill them. The cultural exchange sessions revealed even more disturbing facts about human behavior. Commander Hayes mentioned that she enjoyed rock climbing in her spare time. You deliberately scale vertical stone surfaces? Dr. Zexthon asked. For recreation? It's fun, Hayes said. Good exercise, too. There's nothing like the view from the top of a mountain. Mountain climbing. The aliens learned that humans regularly engaged in activities that involved risking death for enjoyment. They climbed high peaks where the air was too thin to breathe. They dove deep underwater where pressure could crush their bodies. They jumped from aircraft with fabric parachutes as their only protection. Captain Morrison mentioned that he used to enjoy surfing before joining the space program. Surfing? Dr. Kylara asked. Riding waves on a board, Morrison explained. You paddle out into the ocean and catch waves as they come toward shore. The bigger the wave, the more exciting the ride. The ocean. The same ocean that contained the sharks and other predators. Humans went there voluntarily, for fun. Dr. Zexthon's report to the Galactic Council grew longer each day. The humans were not just survivors of a death world. They were active participants in its dangerous ecosystem. They had adapted so completely to their hostile environment that they found it entertaining. They engage in recreational combat, he noted in his files. They call it sports. They strike each other with hands and feet, tackle each other to the ground, and compete to see who can inflict the most damage within established rules. The boxing and football footage that Dr. Foster had shared as examples of human culture had required another medical emergency response from the alien staff. Sir, Dr. Kylara said during one of their research sessions, I've been thinking about their evolution. If their world is this dangerous, how did they survive long enough to develop intelligence? Zexthon had been wondering the same thing. The answer, when it came from Garcia during another medical session, was even more disturbing. Then the question. Humans used to hunt by running prey to death, Garcia explained casually. Before we had weapons or tools, we would just chase animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We could run farther and longer than anything else on the planet. Persistence. Hunting. The humans had evolved as endurance predators who could outlast any other creature on their world. They had literally run their prey to death across entire continents. Dr. Zexthon realized he was documenting the evolution of apex predators who had somehow developed empathy, intelligence, and social cooperation. The humans were not just survivors of a death world. They were the reason it was a death world. They domesticated other predators, he wrote in his final notes for the day. They keep smaller carnivores called cats and dogs as companions in their homes. They have formed emotional bonds with creatures that could kill them. The implications were staggering. These beings had turned their planet's most dangerous predators into friends and family members. They lived in harmony with creatures that the rest of the galaxy classified as weapons of mass destruction. The invitation to visit Therma Prime came with more safety warnings than any diplomatic mission in galactic history. Captain Morrison and his crew would travel in a specially modified transport ship with human-compatible life support. They would wear protective suits at all times. Most importantly, they were forbidden from bringing any Earth food, beverages, or biological samples. "They're treating us like walking biological weapons," Lieutenant Bobby Taylor said as he packed his gear for the trip. Morrison shrugged. "Can't blame them. After what happened with the nature videos, I'd be nervous too." The journey to the galactic capital took 6 days. During the trip, the human crew learned more about their alien hosts. Dr. Ben Rodriguez, the mission's geologist, spent hours talking with the ship's alien navigator about planetary formation and development. "Most worlds in the galaxy follow predictable patterns," the navigator explained. His name was too complex for human tongue, so he asked them to call him Guide. "Stable orbits around mature stars, consistent climates, gradual evolutionary changes over millions of years." Rodriguez nodded politely, but he was thinking about Earth's history. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, massive volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that wiped out entire species, pole reversals that scrambled, magnetic fields, continental drift that completely rearranged land masses. "What about natural disasters?" Rodriguez asked. "Earthquakes, volcanic activity, severe weather." Guide's tentacles curled with confusion. "Such events are rare. Perhaps once every few thousand years a world might experience minor geological activity. But any planet with frequent disasters would never develop complex life." Rodriguez almost laughed. On Earth, they had multiple volcanic eruptions every day somewhere on the planet. Earthquakes happened constantly. Hurricane seasons, tornado outbreaks, and blizzards were regular calendar events that humans planned around. When they arrived at Therma Prime, the humans got their first look at a normal galactic world. The planet was beautiful in its own way. Gentle rolling hills covered in soft, moss-like plants, crystal-clear rivers flowing peacefully through meadows, small harmless creatures that looked like living flowers floating through the air. The cities were works of art, all flowing curves, and organic shapes that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than being built on it. The alien architecture was elegant and graceful, designed for beings who had never needed to worry about defense or protection from their environment. "It's lovely," Commander Hayes said as their transport descended toward the main spaceport. "Very peaceful." The welcoming ceremony was held in the Grand Assembly Hall, a massive dome made from some kind of living crystal that changed colors based on the emotional state of the beings inside it. Thousands of alien dignitaries from across the galaxy had come to see the humans from the legendary Deathworld. Dr. Zexthon introduced the human crew to the assembly. His preliminary report had already spread through the galactic government, causing both fascination and terror among the various species represented. "These beings have survived conditions that would destroy our finest warships," Zexthon announced. "They have adapted to an environment so hostile that our computers initially classified their world as uninhabitable by any possible life form." The assembly murmured with a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Many of the aliens had never seen humans before, and they stared with all the eyes, sensors, and detection organs they possessed. The formal presentations began with Captain Morrison explaining basic facts about Earth. He tried to keep things simple and non-threatening, but every fact he shared caused ripples of shock through the assembly. "Earth is about 4.5 billion years old," Morrison said. "We've had 5 major extinction events that wiped out most life on the planet. The last one killed the dinosaurs about 65 million years ago." The translation system struggled with the concept of extinction events. Most galactic species had evolved on worlds with stable, unchanging environments. The idea of planetary disasters so severe that they could eliminate entire evolutionary branches was almost incomprehensible. "How many species exist on your world now?" asked an ambassador from the Crystalline Collective. Dr. Amy Foster, who had joined them for this trip, stepped forward to answer. "We estimate somewhere between 8 and 100 million different species, depending on how you count microorganisms." The silence that followed was complete. Most galactic worlds supported maybe a few thousand species total. Earth had more biodiversity in a single forest than some entire star systems. "This is impossible," whispered a delegate from the thermal courts. "No world can support such biological complexity." Foster smiled. "Earth is pretty crowded. Competition, for resources is intense, so species have to adapt quickly or they don't survive. It creates a lot of evolutionary pressure. Evolutionary pressure. Dr. Zexthon made notes frantically. Earth wasn't just a world with dangerous creatures. It was a planet-sized laboratory that constantly forced life forms to become stronger, faster, and more adaptable or face extinction. The cultural exchange portion of the visit was scheduled to include athletic demonstrations. The galactic government wanted to understand human physical capabilities in a controlled environment. They had prepared what they considered to be challenging tests of strength, speed, and endurance. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan volunteered to represent humanity. She was a former track athlete who had joined the space program after setting several records in long-distance running. She was fit and strong, but by human standards, she was just a well-trained, normal person. The first test was a simple race. Sullivan was asked to run around a track designed for the fastest known galactic species. The current record holder was a creature that looked like a six-legged cheetah from the velocity plains of Nexus 7. Sullivan stretched casually and took her position at the starting line. When the signal came, she began to run at what she considered a comfortable pace. She completed the first lap while the alien spectators watched their timing devices with growing confusion. She was running faster than the current galactic record, and she wasn't even breathing hard. By the third lap, Sullivan had lapped the previous record holder twice. By the fifth lap, the alien medical teams were convinced their instruments were malfunctioning. No organic being could maintain such speed for so long. Sullivan finished 10 laps and jogged over to where the humans were sitting. "Not bad," she said, barely winded. "The track's a little soft, but good for distance work." The strength tests were even more shocking. Sullivan was asked to lift weights calibrated for the strongest known galactic species. She picked up the maximum weight with one hand and asked if they had anything heavier. When they brought out industrial lifting equipment designed for cargo handling, Sullivan managed to move weights that most aliens needed machines to budge. "Where does this strength come from?" Dr. Zexton asked Dr. Rodriguez during a break in the demonstrations. Rodriguez thought about how to explain Earth's gravity. "Our world pulls harder," he said simply. "Everything on Earth has to be strong enough to support itself against that pull. After living your whole life in high gravity, normal gravity feels easy. High gravity. The implications hit the alien scientists like a meteor strike. Humans had evolved in a gravitational field that was crushing by galactic standards. Their bones, muscles, and organs had developed under conditions that would flatten most other species. The endurance tests broke several records and required medical intervention for the alien observers. Sullivan ran for 30 minutes without stopping, performed hundreds of repetitive exercises, and maintained perfect coordination while doing activities that should have exhausted her in minutes. "How long could you continue?" asked the test coordinator, a being that looked like a living crystal formation. Sullivan shrugged. "I could probably keep going for a couple hours. I used to run marathons back home. That's about 4 hours of continuous running." 4 hours. The galactic record for continuous physical activity was 12 minutes. Sullivan was casually mentioning that she used to run for 4 hours as a hobby. During the evening social events, the humans shared stories about their world and their history. Dr. Rodriguez talked about geology, describing how Earth's surface was constantly changing. Continents moved, mountains grew and eroded, and the planet's crust was broken into pieces that ground against each other. "We call them tectonic plates," Rodriguez explained. "They move very slowly, maybe a few inches per year, but over millions of years they completely reshape the planet's surface." The alien geologists were fascinated and horrified. Most galactic worlds had solid, stable crusts that never changed. The idea of a planet that continuously rebuilt itself was revolutionary. Foster described the Ice Ages, periods when Earth's climate cooled so much that glaciers covered much of the land surface. "Humanity almost went extinct a few times," she said casually. "During the worst ice age, there were probably only a few thousand humans left alive. Near extinction events. The humans spoke about almost being wiped out like it was ancient history that didn't matter anymore. But the alien psychologists recognized the implications. Any species that had survived multiple near-extinction events would develop incredible adaptability and resilience. The diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim was supposed to be routine. Captain Morrison and his crew joined a galactic trade delegation aboard the research vessel Harmony of Spheres, a beautiful ship that looked more like a floating palace than a spacecraft. The mission was simple: establish trade relationships with the newly contacted Meridian Collective. Dr. Patricia Chen, the human missions medical officer, was excited about the opportunity to study alien medical practices. She had brought samples of human vaccines and medicines, all carefully cleared by galactic health authorities after extensive testing. The trouble started on the third day of the journey. Lieutenant Bobby Taylor was the first to notice something wrong. He was in the ship's recreation area when he saw one of the Thalorian crew members collapse. The alien's crystalline body was flickering rapidly, changing colors and patterns that looked like distress signals. "Medical emergency in Recreation Bay 7, Taylor called over the ship's communication system. Dr. Chen arrived at the same time as the ship's medical team. The Thalorian was unconscious, its normally clear crystal form now cloudy and dim. The alien doctors were already scanning it with their advanced medical equipment. "Biological contamination," announced Dr. Zilneth, the ship's chief medical officer. "Unknown pathogen attacking the nervous system." Within hours, the situation got worse. More crew members began falling ill. The symptoms appeared rapidly: fever, weakness, organ failure, and in the worst cases, complete system shutdown. The alien medical staff worked frantically, but they had never seen anything like this disease. "We need to establish quarantine protocols immediately," Dr. Zilneth told Captain Morrison. "This pathogen could kill every non-human on this ship." Morrison nodded grimly. "What do you need from us?" "Your cooperation with isolation procedures. We must ensure this disease does not spread to your crew." Dr. Chen volunteered to work with the alien medical team. She had experience with infectious diseases from her time at the Centers for Disease Control back on Earth. As she studied the pathogen samples under the ship's medical scanners, she began to recognize familiar patterns. "This looks like a flu virus," she told Dr. Zilneth, "similar to what we see on Earth during winter seasons." Dr. Zilneth's four eyes widened in horror. "You have encountered this biological weapon before?" "Biological weapon?" Dr. Chen looked confused. "No, it's just the flu. A common respiratory illness. Most humans get it once or twice in their lives." The translation system struggled with Dr. Chen's casual tone. To the alien medical staff, she was describing exposure to a deadly plague with the same attitude someone might discuss a minor headache. By the end of the first day, half the ship's crew was in critical condition. The alien medical facilities were overwhelmed. Emergency messages went out to every galactic medical center, requesting immediate assistance with what was being classified as a Class A biological warfare attack. Meanwhile, the human crew remained completely healthy. Engineer Rick Barnes was working in the ship's engine room, helping to maintain life support systems for the quarantined areas. He had been exposed to the pathogen for hours, working alongside infected aliens without any protective equipment except standard work clothes. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Zilneth asked Barnes during one of the emergency medical checks. Barnes sniffed and wiped his nose with his sleeve. "Got a little sniffle, but I'm fine. Probably just the recycled air in here. A little sniffle." Dr. Zilneth stared at the medical readings. Barnes was infected with the same pathogen that was killing aliens throughout the ship, but his symptoms were so mild that he barely noticed them. Dr. Chen began collecting blood samples from the human crew to study their immune response. What she found was remarkable even by human standards. Their immune systems are fighting off the infection almost as fast as it can spread, she explained to the desperate alien medical team. The pathogen never gets a chance to establish itself in human tissue. "How is this possible?" Dr. Zilneth asked. Dr. Chen thought about how to explain Earth's biological environment. Humans are exposed to thousands of different pathogens every day. Our immune systems have evolved to handle constant biological warfare. This particular virus is actually pretty mild compared to some of the things we deal with on Earth. Mild. The word echoed through the alien medical staff like a death sentence. What they considered a world-ending plague, humans considered a minor seasonal inconvenience. Commander Hayes was called to an emergency meeting with the ship's senior staff. Many of the aliens were too sick to attend in person, so they participated through remote communication systems. "We need to understand how humans resist this infection," said Captain Velmora of the Harmony of Spheres. His voice was weak, transmitted from his medical bed. "Our people are dying." Hayes looked uncomfortable. "I'm not a doctor, but Dr. Chen says it's just our immune systems doing what they're supposed to do. We've been fighting diseases like this for thousands of years." "Fighting diseases like this," Dr. Zilneth repeated slowly. "You mean your species regularly encounters biological agents of this lethality?" "Well, yeah," Hayes said. "Every winter we get flu outbreaks. Sometimes they're worse than others. The 1918 pandemic was pretty bad. Killed maybe 50 million people worldwide. But we developed vaccines and treatments. Now it's just something we deal with. 50 million people. The number was staggering to aliens whose entire species might number only a few million individuals total. Humans had survived a plague that killed 50 million of their own kind and considered it historical trivia. Dr. Chen worked around the clock with the alien medical teams, trying to develop treatments based on human immune responses. She discovered that human blood contained antibodies that could neutralize the pathogen completely. "We could synthesize treatments based on human antibody patterns," she suggested. "It would take time, but we might be able to save your crew." The process was complicated by the fact that human blood was itself considered toxic by galactic standards. The high oxygen content, iron levels, and chemical composition that made human blood effective against pathogens also made it dangerous to most alien physiology. "We're trying to use one biological weapon to fight another," Dr. Zilneth said grimly. Dr. Chen bristled at the description. "It's not a weapon. It's just how our bodies work." As the crisis continued, more disturbing facts emerged about human biology. Dr. Chen mentioned that she had been vaccinated against dozens of diseases before leaving Earth. "Vaccinated?" Dr. Zilneth asked. "Deliberately exposed to weakened versions of dangerous pathogens so our immune systems learn to fight them," Dr. Chen explained. "Standard medical practice, all human children get vaccinated against things like polio, measles, tuberculosis." The alien medical staff went silent. Humans deliberately infected their own children with diseases as a form of medical treatment. The practice sounded like something out of a horror story. Lieutenant Sullivan casually mentioned that she had survived food poisoning during a camping trip the previous year. "Food poisoning?" Dr. Zilneth's voice was barely a whisper. "Bad seafood. At a restaurant," Sullivan said with a shrug. "I was sick for a couple days, but it wasn't too bad. Lost some weight, actually." She had survived ingesting biological toxins that would have killed most galactic species instantly, and she described it as losing weight. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen realized that the pathogen was actually a mutated version of a common Earth cold virus. It had adapted to alien biology, becoming lethal to species that had never encountered anything like it. "It's like when Europeans brought diseases to the Americas," Dr. Chen explained to Captain Morrison. "Populations that had never been exposed to certain pathogens had no immunity. But for us, this is just a slightly different version of something we've dealt with for millennia." Working with the alien medical teams, Dr. Chen developed a treatment protocol based on human immune system responses. It was risky, but it was the only option they had. The treatment worked. Slowly, the alien crew began to recover. Those who had been close to death started showing signs of improvement. The crisis was over, but the implications were just beginning to sink in. Captain Vellamora called another meeting once he was well enough to attend in person. His crystalline form was still dim from his illness, but he was alive. "You saved us," he said to the human crew. "Your natural immunity to biological warfare agents prevented a total loss of life aboard this vessel." "We didn't do anything special," Morrison said. "Dr. Chen did the hard work developing the treatment." Dr. Chen shook her head. "I just applied basic human medical knowledge. Any Earth doctor could have done the same thing. Any Earth doctor. The aliens were beginning to understand that humans didn't just survive their hostile world through individual toughness. They had developed medical knowledge and biological defenses that surpassed anything in the galaxy. How many such pathogens exist on your world? Dr. Zilneth asked. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. Millions, probably. New ones evolve constantly. Our immune systems adapt to fight them, and our medical science develops new treatments. It's an ongoing process. Millions of pathogens, constantly evolving biological threats that would devastate galactic civilization. And humans lived with them every day, treating them as minor medical inconveniences. The Grand Assembly Hall on Therma Prime had never hosted a session quite like this one. Representatives from every major galactic civilization filled the massive crystal dome, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, harmonics, and electromagnetic pulses that the universal translators worked overtime to convert into coherent discussion. At the center of it all sat the human question. Dr. Zexton stood at the main presentation platform, his tentacles trembling slightly as he prepared to deliver his final report. 6 months of study had produced data that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about life, evolution, and survival. Honored delegates, Zexthon began, his words echoing through translation systems in hundreds of languages. We gather today to address a fundamental revision of our understanding of biological possibility. The massive screens around the hall lit up with images from Earth. Rolling green forests, snow-capped mountains, vast blue oceans that sparkled under a yellow sun. To most of the assembled aliens, the images looked like paradise. They had no idea they were looking at the galaxy's most dangerous world. The beings we call humans evolved on a planet that our computers classify as uninhabitable, Zexton continued. Today I will present evidence that not only did they survive this environment, but that they actively participated in creating and maintaining its hostile conditions. Captain Morrison sat in the human delegation area with Commander Hayes, Dr. Chen, and the rest of his crew. They had been asked to attend as expert witnesses, though Morrison suspected they were really there as living proof that Zexton's impossible report was actually true. Let us begin with basic environmental factors, Zexton said as new images appeared on the screens. Earth's gravity is 2.3 times galactic standard. Its atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, a concentration that would ignite the respiratory systems of most known species. Surface temperatures vary by over 100 degrees in regular cycles. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. Several delegates requested verification of the data. But these environmental extremes are not the most remarkable aspect of human evolution, Zexton continued. The humans have not simply adapted to their hostile world. They have domesticated it. The screens now showed images that Dr. Foster had provided. Humans swimming in oceans filled with predators, climbing mountains that reached into the thin atmosphere, exploring caves deep underground. Each image showed humans voluntarily entering environments that would require emergency evacuation protocols for any other galactic species. They engage in recreational exposure to environmental hazards, Zexton explained. They call this vacation. Ambassador Crickstall of the Thermal Courts raised a crystalline appendage. Dr. Zexathon, surely you don't mean to suggest that these beings seek out danger for enjoyment? Before Zexathon could answer, Commander Hayes stood up. If I may address the assembly? The hall fell silent as thousands of alien eyes, sensors, and detection organs focused on the human female. We don't really think of it as seeking danger, Hayes said. We just like to explore and challenge ourselves. Rock climbing, scuba diving, skiing, these are normal recreational activities where I come from. The translation systems worked furiously to convey concepts that had no equivalent in most galactic languages. Recreation involving personal risk was so foreign to galactic thinking that many delegates assumed the translators were malfunctioning. Commander Hayes, said Grand Chancellor Maldith, the session's presiding officer, could you explain why your species would voluntarily expose itself to potentially lethal situations? Hayes thought for a moment. I guess because overcoming challenges makes us feel alive. There's something satisfying about pushing your limits and succeeding. Plus, The views from the top of a mountain are really amazing. Amazing views. The humans risked death for aesthetic appreciation. Dr. Zexthon resumed his presentation with the most disturbing revelations. The humans have not only survived their Deathworld's biological threats, they have recruited them as allies. New images appeared. Humans with dogs and cats, farmers working alongside horses and cattle, children playing with rabbits and hamsters. To the assembly, these looked like scenes from a nightmare. Humans coexisting peacefully with creatures that galactic databases classified as dangerous predators or disease vectors. They have formed emotional bonds with other carnivorous species, Zexton explained. They keep them in their homes as companions and family members. Captain Morrison was called to testify. He walked to the presentation platform with the easy confidence that humans displayed in any environment, while alien security teams monitored him nervously. Captain Morrison, Grand Chancellor Moldeth said carefully, "Is it true that humans deliberately live with predatory animals?" Morrison smiled, showing his teeth in the expression that still made aliens nervous. "Dogs and cats aren't really predators to us, they're pets, companions. My family has had dogs for generations. They're loyal, protective, and great with kids." Great with kids. The humans entrusted their young to carnivorous animals. "Could you explain the concept of pets to the assembly?" Moldeth asked. Morrison looked out at the sea of alien faces and tried to find words that would make sense. "Pets are animals we care for and love. They live in our homes, eat our food, sleep in our beds. In return, they give us companionship and affection. Dogs especially will defend their human families with their lives." The concept was so alien that it broke several translation systems. The idea of cross-species emotional bonding was unknown in galactic civilization. Dr. Zexthon brought up his most shocking evidence. Perhaps most disturbing is the humans' relationship with their planet's climate and geology. They do not merely survive environmental catastrophes, they have learned to predict and prepare for them. Morrison nodded. "We have weather forecasting, earthquake monitoring, volcano watches. When Hurricane Charlie hit the Gulf Coast last year, we evacuated 2 million people in 3 days. When Mount Cascade started showing signs of activity, we had monitoring equipment in place months before the eruption." The assembly sat in stunned silence. The humans had developed technology to predict planetary disasters that would catch most galactic civilizations completely off guard. They treat extinction-level events as manageable inconveniences, Zexthon noted. Dr. Chen was asked to testify about human medical practices. Her presentation on vaccines, antibiotics, and surgical procedures caused several delegates to request medical attention. "We perform invasive procedures to repair damaged organs," Dr. Chen explained. "We deliberately cut into living tissue to fix problems, then allow the body to heal itself." Surgery was unknown in galactic medicine. Most species relied on external, healing technologies that never required breaking the skin. "We also transplant organs from one human to another," Dr. Chen continued. "Hearts, kidneys, livers. We can replace damaged organs with healthy ones from volunteers." Organ transplantation sounded like something from a horror story to species whose bodies could not survive such trauma. The final testimony came from an unexpected source. Engineer Rick Barnes had requested permission to address the assembly about something he called the Mars Project. "Ladies, gentlemen, and other beings," Barnes said with typical human casualness, "I wanted to mention that Earth isn't the only place humans live anymore." Dr. Zexton's tentacles went rigid. This was new information. "We've got colonies on Mars now," Barnes continued. "About 50,000 people living in dome cities and underground facilities. Mars is a lot harsher than Earth. No atmosphere, to speak of. Radiation exposure, extreme cold. But we're making it work." The assembly erupted in chaos. The humans had not only survived their impossible death world, they had voluntarily moved to an even worse one. "The Mars colonists are actually working on terraforming projects," Barnes added helpfully. "They want to change the planet's atmosphere and climate to make it more Earth-like." Terraforming. The humans were not content to adapt to hostile environments. They wanted to remake entire worlds to suit their preferences. Grand Chancellor Moldeth called for order as delegates across the hall demanded emergency recesses, medical assistance, and verification of Barnes's claims. "Mr. Barnes," Moldeth said when quiet was restored, "are you saying that humans deliberately choose to live in environments more hostile than your homeworld?" Barnes shrugged. "Mars is tough, but it's also exciting. New challenges, new frontiers. Plus, someone's got to do the groundwork for the next generation." Dr. Zexton concluded his presentation with a complete revision of human classification. "Based on 6 months of intensive study, I recommend that Earth be reclassified as a friendly death world, and that humans be designated as the galaxy's first adaptive apex species." The final vote was unanimous. Earth would become the center for galactic emergency response training. Humans would be invited to establish medical and disaster response centers throughout the galaxy. Commander Hayes was offered the position of Director of Extreme Environment Operations, while Dr. Chen became head of the new Galactic Medical Emergency Response Division. Captain Morrison found himself appointed as Earth's first galactic ambassador, a position that came with one unique requirement. Any human who wanted to visit other worlds had to complete a basic course call